Will, we should jump in with the latest from South Africa because this tour now is hanging on by a thread, I would put it to you.
Yeah, I think it's in real danger, lads. The Lions warm-up game against the Bulls officially postponed about an hour ago. It's after 4 Bulls players and 1 member of the management team tested positive for COVID-19. Organisers did say that they're open to the Lions facing another team on Saturday, while South Africa's game against Georgia on Friday is currently under review. 11 new cases have been confirmed this evening in the Springboks camp, including their head coach Jack Nienaber. The latest round of testing has also returned 4 positive tests tonight in the Georgian squad. And the Lions defence coach Steve Tandy was speaking earlier. It was put to him, hypothetically, if Georgia were free to play this weekend, would they play them?
There'll be other people will be talking and dealing with that, and generally it's just trying to focus on day to day and getting the players and making sure our standards and what we can control, and if we end up in Cape Town, we'll deal with that. If we've got to come back to Johannesburg, we're fully prepared for whatever happens. I think when you're talking hypotheticals, I think anything's possible through COVID. I think we've seen that. So for me, I think anything, if there's any opportunity for games called off to play a game, then that'll be great for us and for whoever else is looking for a game.
I suspect he may have been asked that before news came through of the 4 positive cases in the Georgian squad. You would think that makes things very difficult on the Georgian front. 11 cases in the Springboks camp, Dave, after 4 cases the week before. I mean, it's running rife, I think, is the truth there, is the reality. And there'll be pressure put on, I'm sure, to get the stamp of approval from the medics. I'm sure the government will make sure that that pressure is put on. But I mean, I don't know, like at best now it feels like you're heading towards, well, let's just get down to Cape Town and have the 3 tests on July 24th and cancel everything else maybe.
Yeah, well, I think if you were to be told now they could get the 3 test matches played without a hitch, they probably would take that. But every time you listen to a news bulletin, the news seems to get worse. It sounds a bit farcical at this point that, you know, you could be potentially scrabbling around in the dirt looking for challengers at the weekend. It's almost like a Division 7 or 8 Dublin adult league sort of game where the one opponent can't play at the weekend, so you make a couple of phone calls and see who might be around for a challenge match. And I'm thinking of Alan Wynne-Jones and how devastated he must have been that night, and I'm sure he would love to be over there with them. But there must be a tiny part in the nether regions of his mind that is thinking, do you know, I'm better off not being over there, because it must be so difficult for everybody involved, from the organisers to the players to all of the staff they have with them. Obviously the Lions bubble has remained intact, but you wonder, is it inevitable that a case or 2 creeps into theirs? Because as you say, it appears to be rife. That we've 3 different sides now, the Bulls, the Springboks and the Georgians, all now reporting positive cases, and it just seems to be going from bad to worse, and you really could not predict where this is going to end up.
Yeah, I've no idea if the Bulls are all in a biosecure bubble or if they're going home to their families or not, so maybe that explains the Bulls cases. You would think the Georgian squad are in a pretty secure bubble, so they've had 4 positives. The Springboks camp certainly was, and I would think still is. I don't know, are they going home at any stage? But they were in a 3-week bubble before the first raft of 4 cases, and now so 11 cases is a big jump. I don't know, Will, what's your read on the situation? Lions have done remarkably well to not have a single case yet.
Yeah, it's surprising they've got to here, because all the kind of commentary in South Africa earlier today about the cases that they previously had and suspicion that more were going to come back in after the latest round of testing is that the players and coaching staff with South Africa were vaccinated. So the hope was that once they'd been vaccinated and had stayed in a bubble which was very different to previous tours, that this would mean that COVID-19 impact was going to be minimal. You have to be massively concerned when you hear 11 cases. If these players now have to isolate for up to 10 days, it brings you up very close to the first test. And trying to scratch together a team to actually play, as Dave said, it almost feels like, getting ready to get a junior team just to field against you so the Lions can get some game time this weekend. It detracts massively from the idea of the Lions actually playing against a touring party, because the Bulls this weekend was seen as probably the only South African franchise that were likely to give the Lions a decent game. Like last week, the Lions eased home, but the Bulls are seen as the strongest based on the way they played in the Rainbow Cup. Now that's been removed away, and you just start to wonder at this stage, how are the Lions going to fit those 10 or 11 days in before they're due to go into the final stages of preparation for the first test, if, say, another game was to fall. Thankfully, from off the ball's point of view, and we still have a bit of skin in the game here, we've got the match tomorrow night between the Sharks and the Lions, which will go ahead. But everything just massive uncertainty now, particularly with what's happening on Friday, because it seemed really neat that if Georgia couldn't play against South Africa because of South Africa's cases, Georgia just slip in, play the game in Joburg on Saturday against the Lions, and everyone moves on. But now it seems very unlikely that Georgia will be able to field if they've got a minimum of 4 cases to deal with between now and Saturday. I would be shocked if Friday's game between the Boks and Georgia goes ahead.
Yeah, I would think so. 4 cases Georgia camp, 11 cases Springboks, and it's Tuesday. I mean, if they manage to pull that off by Friday, then I'd almost be suspicious, really, of what's been done or what pressure has been applied. Look, I guess a final word on it, because it's an ever-changing situation. But I guess, Dave, say all the warm-up games go, say the South African-Georgia game goes, but say they manage to get the 3 tests played. Ultimately, these warm-up games are forgotten very quickly, and increasingly so. They're less and less competitive with each passing tour, I think. If they get the 3 tests played and the 3 tests are as good as we all expect them to be, then the tour will be considered a bit of a success. So it's fairly grim right now, but there is still the distinct possibility of, look, can we get the South African team into a properly biosecure bubble? Get the Lions, they've seemed to be doing well so far, into an equally biosecure bubble. Get these 3 tests played, and we sort of get out of here without almost embarrassment caused all round.
It'll always be remembered, though, Joe, won't it, as the tour of South Africa that never really was.
Sure.
Unfortunately, no matter what way you try and dress it up, there is still the potential for 3 memorable tests, albeit in front of empty stands, which is not a Lions tour that any of us can relate to. So either way, it'll always be the COVID Lions tour, and that's unfortunate for everybody involved. It was always going to be a huge risk once they ultimately made that decision to stage the tour in South Africa as originally planned. This was always a possibility, and we are there now. Unfortunately, it's starting to unravel, but they'll see it as a success now to get the 3 tests played. Whoever comes out on the losing side will always be able to point to some reasons as to why things were really beyond their control. And in several years' time, I don't think we're going to be watching the video and the documentary that's been made about the 2021 Lions tour with the fondness, if there is one at all, that we've watched the ones previously.
No. Yet another scene from the hotel room, I think, would be the documentary.